We must, working together, ensure that that campaign of the city of Johannesburg of renaming Sandton Drive into Leila Khalid happens in our lifetime. It has to happen because we want the United States of America's embassy to change their letterheads. When they have their letterheads, they must say United States of America, #1, Leila Khalid Drive in Johannesburg, in Gauteng, because we are sending a message. They cannot dominate us and tell us what to do. It must be in their face, it must be in their computers, it must be in their letterheads. We have to do that, and we must get our young people, our students, we must take them, Comrade Dada. We must have tours, Comrade Chris. Take our youth, take our students to that Sandton Drive and explain why we want to rename that street. Because when they change their streets to Solomon Mahlangu, when they change their streets to Nelson Mandela, when they change their streets to Winnie Mandela in other countries, their children could explain why in a foreign land they will name their street after Nelson Mandela. That's what we must do as part of organizational renewal and uniting the people of South Africa.
It's no longer a question of if South Africa is heading toward economic collapse. It's a matter of how fast we're getting there. In 2025, the Trump administration dropped the hammer, and South Africa landed directly in the crosshairs. From foreign aid cuts to devastating tariffs and now looming personal sanctions on ANC leaders, the United States has made one thing brutally clear: it's fed up. And South Africans, ordinary people trying to survive, are now paying the price for decades of corruption, race politics, and diplomatic stupidity. Let's start at the beginning. When Trump was re-elected in November 2024 and took office again in January 2025, his agenda was aggressive and simple: America first at any cost. That meant protecting American jobs, punishing what he called hostile states, and slamming tariffs on countries that don't align with US political and trade interests. On January 20th, 2025, he signed an executive order that suspended all US foreign assistance to South Africa. That included a $440 million aid package, of which $265.6 million was for PEPFAR, the HIV/AIDS treatment program supporting 5.5 million South Africans. That's not an exaggeration, that's medicine, that's lives, gone overnight. Clinics started reporting shortages, testing slowed down, outreach programs collapsed, and the government, it was caught flat-footed. 3 weeks later, in February 2025, Trump took to the stage and declared that South Africa was guilty of race-based discrimination, referencing B-BBEE, affirmative action, and most explosively, the Expropriation Act, which allows land to be taken without compensation. He accused South Africa of confiscating land and conducting economic apartheid in reverse. He wasn't subtle, he was furious. And just days later, the administration threatened to remove South Africa from the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, a trade deal passed in 2000 that gives South African products duty-free access to the US market. That deal supports over 65 billion rands in exports every year, everything from automotive parts to citrus and steel, and at least 125,000 jobs, mostly in Limpopo, Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga, and the Western Cape. Losing AGOA would be like slitting our own throat, and the ANC government just kept smiling. By March 2025, things escalated again. Trump imposed a 25% tariff on key South African exports to the US, and by August 1, 2025, those tariffs were raised to 31%, gutting our competitiveness completely. That made South African goods more expensive in America than European or Asian alternatives. Farmers couldn't sell. Steel workers were laid off. Car plants started reducing shifts. Exports collapsed. The rand tanked. At the same time, South Africa's international reputation was taking a beating. Trump and his conservative backers amplified claims that white farmers were being killed in racially motivated attacks. He cited the chant, "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer," still being sung at political rallies by Julius Malema's EFF and MK party supporters, as justification for fast-tracking asylum for white South African farmers in the US. He called the chant hate speech and said the ANC was harboring genocide sympathies. Whether you agree or not, that's the perception, loud and clear, and it carried straight into policy. By May, Trump's administration had expelled South Africa's Islamic ambassador, Ibrahim Rasool, from Washington, D.C., boycotted a G20 meeting hosted by South Africa, and froze all diplomatic engagements. The message was clear. If South Africa continues to align with America's enemies, continues to discriminate economically on the basis of race, and continues to ignore farm murders and racialized land reform, there will be personal consequences for the ANC elite. As of August 2025, the US Congress is reviewing proposals for targeted sanctions against individual ANC leaders. These would include visa bans, asset freezes, and restrictions on international travel and business. People close to Cyril Ramaphosa, Nomvula Mokonyane, and several senior cabinet officials are now under investigation for racist policy implementation and for deepening ties with Iran, another US adversary. Trump's executive order from February explicitly linked South Africa's commercial and nuclear cooperation with Iran to national security threats. Why all this now? Because under ANC rule, South Africa has positioned itself as a non-aligned BRICS member, friendly with Russia, Iran, China, and Palestinian causes, while accusing Israel of genocide at the ICJ and pushing policies that look to the outside world like anti-white economic apartheid. Let's not pretend we don't know how we got here. Over 30 years of misrule, the ANC has taken South Africa from an emerging democracy to a broken kleptocracy. It's been one scandal after another. Incandler, Bosasa, Eskom, Transnet, VBS, Digital Vibes, State Capture, the list goes on. Unemployment is over 32%, and youth unemployment among black South Africans is over 40%. Corruption is everywhere. Law enforcement is collapsing. Infrastructure is rotting. And while the government preaches transformation, they've weaponized race. B-BBEE has become a gateway to elite enrichment, not true empowerment. Affirmative action has sidelined capable professionals and alienated investment. Land reform, sold as a moral corrective, has become a dog whistle internationally. Here's the kicker. All of this has real-world impact. According to trade data, U.S. foreign direct investment into South Africa dropped 10% from $7.8 billion in 2023 to $7 billion in 2024, and that number is falling fast in 2025. Exporters are shutting down operations, the rand is collapsing, inflation is rising, PEPFAR-funded health programs are being scaled back, schools are underfunded, municipalities are bankrupt. The Gini coefficient, a measure of inequality, is now at 0.63, one of the worst in the world. If this continues, we are headed exactly where Zimbabwe went. Hyperinflation, sanctions, food shortages, skilled immigration, and collapse. Zimbabwe didn't become a failed state overnight. It was a slow betrayal of the people by a government more interested in power and patronage than service and stability. South Africa is halfway there and picking up speed. So what must be done? First, South Africa needs to immediately negotiate a bilateral trade deal with the US that guarantees continued market access for automotive and agricultural goods, even if AGOA expires in September. That means the ANC must swallow its pride and stop pretending that the West needs us more than we need them. Second, land reform must be depoliticized and made transparent, lawful, and market-friendly. End the threats, end the populist posturing, restore legal certainty. Third, B-BBEE must be scrapped or reformed entirely to focus on enterprise development, skills, and capacity building, not ownership quotas or political scoring. Fourth, cut diplomatic ties with Iran and quietly normalize relations with Israel, even if only for trade and technology. South Africa needs water infrastructure, agri-tech, and digital solutions. Israel has them. Fifth, clean house, prosecute corruption, fire incompetent ministers, put qualified people in charge of Eskom, Transnet, and law enforcement. That's the only way to rebuild trust. If the ANC fails to do this, if it continues to deflect blame, play racial politics, and pick fights it can't win, South Africa will lose US trade, lose investment, lose access to medicine, and lose international credibility. And when that happens, there'll be no bailout, no sympathy, and no future.